Ireland's possible need for a second bailout in 2013 means that we're now classed as being as risky as Portugal or Greece.
This is according to ratings agency Moody's, who has downgraded our credit rating to junk status.
But what does junk status mean? Who are Moody's and why do they get to make these decisions? Here to explain all is personal finance expert Karl Deeter. A very good morning to you, Karl. I'm so glad you're on to explain this, because last week this all happened and all I was hearing on the TV and the radio is that we're now downgraded to junk status. But I know it's not good, it's really, really bad. But what exactly does it mean? To Ireland and to the people at home?
What it means is that the debt that Ireland has issued in the past, the times that we've gone to the market and borrowed, that debt is now seen as not being of investment grade. There's basically two sides of the valley. One is investment grade. At the top you've got AAA, down near the bottom you'd have BAA. They normally rank with letters and numbers with the three ratings agencies. And on the other side is everybody else who is non-investment grade or speculative, or in bond jargon, junk.
OK. Now, this has been described by Bloxham as a downgrade that was cynical and manipulative. Now, why would they explain it as such?
To a degree, it was because it didn't give a chance to the Irish authorities to demonstrate their situation appropriately. For instance, this ratings downgrade came before the Troika had given its report in on how they felt that we were doing, which gave a vastly different story. Having said that, it's important to remember that the credit rating agencies are what's called NRSRO companies, nationally recognised statistical rating organisations. I lose myself with all the abbreviations sometimes. And the three big ones are Standard & Poor's, Moody's and Fitch. They're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. They don't have the national interest of Ireland at heart. All they are doing is looking at the debt that is issued in this world. And the bond market is huge. It's $95 trillion. And they just give an opinion on whether it's good, if the outlook is positive, or if the outlook is negative. And what they've said basically is our outlook is very negative. We're still far better off than Greece, who are at CCC, which is basically the same almost as being in default. They're considered to be 90% sure of defaulting entirely within the next 5 years. So it's bad. There's nothing that can be seen as being good about this. It will also drive up borrowing costs if we did attempt to borrow. The fact is, we haven't actually gone to the bond market. So this change in outlook really is about in the future if we do try to borrow money again. And that will make it very difficult. The yield on Irish bonds at the moment, even though we're not issuing, there's always the time that you buy it first. That's called the primary market. And then when people who have them sell them amongst themselves, it's the secondary market. Our yield at the moment is 13.9%. To put that in personal finance terms, it'd be like if I said, if you want to get a mortgage, it's going to cost you 13.9%. Well, geez, why you charge me so much? Because I don't believe that you're good for the money. You represent a big credit risk. Okay. That's what we are nationally now.
Okay.
It's
not a smiling matter. You know.
This is a nervous smile.
We're trying to find a positive spin, and it doesn't seem to be there. There is a feeling, though, that the reason they might have done this was to put an obstacle in our way to stop a possible default on our part.
Well, it doesn't necessarily put anything in the way. What it does is it just means that the international focus on this country becomes more negative than it was in the past. A threat of a default will automatically get you downgraded, or talk of this will get you downgraded. And the other effect that it will have on Irish companies is if any Irish company tried to borrow, it will actually pay more, because when the Irish government gets downgraded, any company domiciled in that nation will normally never have a higher credit rating than the actual government of that nation. Okay. So it actually will put a lot of pressure on us in the future. And I think it is a situation that at some point in the near future, we need to get a plan B. Because so far, delaying and hoping for the best, it hasn't been a workable solution. The IMF deal, again, I don't know if it's achieving what it was hoped for. And the view from Europe seems to be, if at first you don't exceed, then just get a bigger hammer. And you can't just, force a solution that suits. You have to get something that effectively will wipe the slate clear. And in the end, I think that it will be a situation that Greece does go under. They may have to look at an alternative future in terms of maybe going back to the drachma, but the drachma existed in the time of Jesus. I mean, it's an old currency. Yeah. If they go back to it, that's fine. As for everybody else, they're going to have to just offer endless money support, or everywhere in Europe could feel a big pinch.
Okay. the situation that's developing now with this junk status, will it trickle down to the man and woman on the street?
Well, yes, because it's important to remember the ratings agency will apply a credit outlook on the country. If the country has to pay more to get money, where does that money come from when they go to repay it? Typically, it comes from taxation. Now, if we're paying more to borrow money, then there's a definite knock-on effect. The taxes will go up, spending has to come down. Otherwise, how else will you pay for it? Okay. And that means higher credit prices, more expensive mortgages. For instance, just last week, Permanent TSB increased their rate. Their variable rate now is over 6%, even though the European Central Bank is only at 1.5%. So it starts to feed into everything. It feeds into all credit, and credit is pervasive in any economy.
OK, now they're just one of a few agencies. What are the other agencies saying? Well,
actually, there's lots of agencies. There's AM Best, there's Danang in China. There's all these agencies around the world who provide opinions on debt. Because in the securities markets, you've got only two sides. You've got the equities side, which is stocks and shares, where when you buy one, you own a part of the company. Then you've got the debt side, which is sovereign bonds, corporate bonds, municipal bonds. And when you buy one of them, you become a creditor of whoever issued it. Now, the ratings agencies provide opinions on that side of things, on all the debt. The three big ones are S&P, who started in 1860. Moody's and Fitch both started in, I think, 1910 and 1913, respectively. Interestingly, this is just a little historical tidbit, they all started off talking about railroads and canals, because they used to be the companies that would issue bonds in order to create these different pieces of infrastructure. Then they moved on, and now they provide ratings on countries, municipalities, all of these things. They're large companies, mostly listed on stock exchanges, and their opinion counts.
But they could change their opinion, couldn't they? Have they done that much in the past?
They can, and they will. When things turn around, they will change your opinion appropriately. Sometimes there's a feeling that we're being victimized by these rating agencies who come in from on high and they say bad things about us. But really, I think we should look at it as this. They don't have a vested interest in driving us into the ground. They're one of the few objective outside voices that we can listen to and get a genuine opinion. Because you've got plenty of talking heads and plenty of politicians who say, no, everything is fine. But then we see that it's not fine. You know, and we used to see this on Wall Street where, you know, the director of Bear Stearns said on a Tuesday, we're absolutely fully funded, and then they closed down on a Friday. We're told in November by, you know, the then Taoiseach, we don't need any outside help. And a month later, the IMF go into town. So the ratings agencies are actually an honest outsider who may do a more severe job than they need to at times. Fine, accuse them of it. But they're not lying, and they are a good objective proxy for people to try and see what's happening in a country.
Well, Karl, thank you very much for coming in to try and explain it to us a little bit more so we can understand it a little bit better, and I think you've done that. Thank you for
well, thank you. And if it doesn't make sense, I just say you can get me on that Twitter feed later on. So.
Oh, yeah, actually,
we better tell people about that.
Yeah, if you have a question for Karl, then today until 12:30, you can ask him any questions you want on our Twitter clinic.
Just tweet your question, making sure to include hashtag TV3MS. Karl will only be answering questions until 12:30 today, so get tweeting.
Now, don't forget, if you've missed any of the morning's programme, you can catch it online at TV3.ie/The Morning Show.
Well, that's it for today. Tomorrow, the morning show will be coming to you from Nina in North Tipperary. I'll be talking to people at the centre of one of Ireland's biggest success story, our home-produced food.